What's up guys and welcome to another video. Today we are doing another Is It Worth Buying? And this time we will be talking about Dark Souls 3. So, Dark Souls 3 was released in April 2016, making it just over 1 year old as of making this video. So the question is this game still worth buying? By the way, the footage you will see in the background is from the first and possibly the second area of the game. I don't intend to spoil the game for you, so what I'll be talking about is just the basic lore and what you're doing in the game, and no major spoilers or whatever. First of all, what even is Dark Souls? Well, if you haven't heard about it yet, you're either new to the gaming community or you've been living under a rock for the past years. But basically the entire Dark Souls franchise, the Souls franchise, are these very difficult games that does not hold your hand per se. The games are completely open for you to explore and discover new things and try different weapons and defeat various monsters. So what makes these games so special? Considering how many open world RPGs there are currently that you can buy, well, what makes this so special then? Well, first of all, the combat in this game is truly amazing in many ways. The number one reason I like the combat so much is because it's very skill based. Everything you manage to kill is because you're good at the game, and if, well, when you die, the only one you can blame is yourself. The essence of the combat is to learn your opponent's attack patterns, and by learning that you know how to take them down. There are so many different enemies which all have their own patterns that you have to learn and analyze pretty much while they are attacking you. It's just amazing and very rewarding. Another thing directly connected to the combat is the weapon variety. Dark Souls 3 does many things right. Weapon variety is definitely one of them. There are so many fun and interesting weapons in this game, and most of them are perfectly viable to use, even in the later parts of the game. I mean, if you look for the best weapon in Dark Souls 3 on forums or Reddit or something like that, you will get so many different answers. I think that proves how good the variety is. And the most important thing is to pick a weapon that you like. One that has the balance between damage, speed, weight, looks, etc. that fits you. A rule of thumb in this game is that the equipment or weapons that you're using are rarely the factor that causes you to die, which are the results of having a skill-based game. I mean, there are people out there completing the game at the, the lowest level as you possibly can be, without armor and like the worst weapons. The lowest tier of weapons, because you can upgrade them, so having an unupgraded weapon while not having any armor or accessories, and they are still beating the game just because it's so skill based. And there are not many games that can do that has the same leveling system, because in Dark Souls, when you upgrade a weapon, when you get a better equipment, and when you get like one level higher or a few levels higher, like you just get slightly better. Your skill still is the most valuable factor in terms of success in this game, which is really cool. The story is another thing I like to talk about. I actually think that it's great, but it's not being told as you're used to. The game has very few cutscenes and narratives, apart from the beginning cutscene, which is probably the longest cutscene in the entire game. Well, if you don't count the credits in the end, but yeah. You learn about the story and what's going on by reading item descriptions, talking to NPCs, and putting the pieces together yourself. Or you can do like me and look it up on YouTube. I would honestly recommend watching a bunch of story videos before playing the game, as that gives you meaning and a purpose to what you're doing and why you're killing those you're killing. From a storytelling position, the game is making a really bad job at telling the story. But that's just my opinion. But from the game's position, the story is just like the rest of the game. It's not holding your hand, as I previously mentioned, and it relies on you discovering it by yourself. Whether that is something you like in a game or not, that is up to you. I personally don't think that's the way to go when telling a story. Anyway, the basic story is that the world is getting ruined, and your job is to link the flame to prevent that. Now, let's talk about the most controversial thing in the entire Dark Souls franchise. The difficulty. Like, this game is challenging. Like, really challenging. But to be honest, the hardest parts are once you're still learning the game. I personally found the beginning areas to be the hardest, just because I hadn't discovered how I want to play the game. Neither had I found a weapon I like particularly much. By the way, this game is a living hell if you're using a weapon that you don't like. And until you've learned and discovered those things, you will feel like you're barely making any progress, and you will die over and over and over again. Dark Souls has a so-called steep learning curve, meaning it is very difficult in the beginning. But I found right around the second and third area that I was learning faster than the game was getting more challenging, if you understand what I mean. And the entire learning process in this game is incredibly rewarding, which is one of the greatest strengths in this franchise. After failing repeatedly against one particular enemy, and then finally managing to kill it, that is what this game is all about. It is unbelievably satisfying. But this type of challenge is not for everyone. I'm not gonna lie, games nowadays are easier than they were before, whether that is because we've actually gotten better, if the controls are better, or if the games are actually more forgiving and not as punishing. Or it could be that the types of game that are popular right now are just easier for us. I mean, the games that were before were platformers, and many of the platformers, if you think about it, were considered to be very difficult. And I think it's just in the nature of platformers that they are difficult. But that is up for another discussion. But what I mean is that Dark Souls 3 is very unforgiving and punishing. If you make a mistake, you have to take the consequences basically. You will take in a ton of damage. I personally had a relatively easy time in this game compared to some people. Bosses rarely took me more than 2 to 5 times to take down, but I realized that's not how it's going to look for everyone, and I respect that. And I'm not bringing up my accomplishments and results to brag, but to make you understand where I'm coming from in this video, from the point of view I have. This is my first Souls game and I'm far from perfect, and I realized that there are so many players out there that are far better than me at this game. And that's the thing about Dark Souls 3. Everyone is going to have a different experience. You will most likely die multiple times until you've understood how to deal with the thing that's killing you. And how you're dealing with it, that is the difference between failure and success in this game. To be honest, the best strategy is just to go. Just do it. Don't care about the souls you may lose. Learn from your mistakes. Oh, and I almost forgot to talk about the controls. So this game is pretty much requires you to play with a controller. If you are looking to play on a console, then you're fine. But if you want to play on PC, there might be some trouble with a mouse and keyboard. From my own experience, the controls are not necessarily bad in terms of key bindings, but because the camera movement with a mouse is absolutely horrible. The camera is stuttering and jumping all over the place, and not even close to being smooth. It's not nice. I'm one of those who always prefers to use a mouse and keyboard just because that is what I'm used to. But I realized after 15 minutes of playing Dark Souls 3 with a mouse, I got motion sick. Not everyone will have the same experience, but a controller is highly recommended anyways. Or a Guitar Hero drum set, which has proven useful for some people. Alright, so I've been rambling on for a while now, so to summarize this, is Dark Souls 3 worth buying? If you like challenging games, with great weapon variety and equipment variety, accessory variety, RPG elements, leveling, etc., then you are definitely going to enjoy this game. And if you have played any previous Souls game and enjoyed them, then you should definitely play Dark Souls 3. If you're not too fond of trying the same thing over and over again to succeed, if you consider yourself to be a slow learner, if you don't like playing unforgivable and punishing games, this game might not be for you. Don't get me wrong, you can still enjoy this game. It just takes a lot of dedication. The thing is that if you like the game, you will probably end up spending 30 plus hours. If you don't like the game, you will probably not even beat the first boss and never play the game again, which is obviously a waste of $40 or so that the game costs. If you're unsure whether you should buy the game or not, I would recommend looking up a few live commentaries or something similar to get a grasp of what the game is all about. Just realize that the first areas doesn't really give you the whole picture of the game, as that is actually extremely easy compared to the rest of the game. So be sure to look at some gameplay from the Undead Settlement, which is the third area in the game. And that summarizes the game better in my opinion, as it has a more realistic, how do you say it, enemy variety. And if you ever feel bad in this game, remember that people have beaten some of the most challenging bosses with steering wheels, drums, guitars and so much more. Have fun, get good and praise the sun. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.